In 1979, Disney tried to make their Star Wars. They poured $20 million into the black hole, their most expensive film ever at the time. They hired the best effects team money could buy. They built sets that looked like cathedrals in space. And then, they made a kids' movie about a mad scientist flying into hell. This is the story of Disney's most expensive gamble, their darkest film ever, and the bizarre chaos that almost destroyed them. The 22 facts. Number 1, before the black hole became Disney's sci-fi nightmare, it was a desperate Hail Mary. After Star Wars obliterated box offices in 1977, every studio in Hollywood scrambled to find their space opera. Disney was dying. Their last hit was a decade old. Executives knew they needed a blockbuster, or the company might not survive the 80s. So they made a decision that shocked everyone. They would make their first PG-rated film ever. Disney, the company built on wholesome family entertainment, was about to venture into dark, violent territory, and they were betting the entire studio's future on it. Number 2. The Black Hole was directed by Gary Nelson, a TV director who'd never made a theatrical film. Why would Disney gamble $20 million on someone with zero big-screen experience? Because every A-list director they approached said no. George Lucas passed. Steven Spielberg laughed at the script. Robert Wise, who directed The Day the Earth Stood Still, called it philosophically confused. Disney was so desperate they promoted a guy who'd directed episodes of The Wonderful World of Disney. Nelson later admitted he had no idea what the ending meant. He just filmed what the script said and hoped it would make sense in editing. It didn't. Number 3, Maximilian Schell was cast as the villain, Dr. Hans Reinhardt, and he treated the production like a Shakespearean tragedy. Schell was a method actor who'd won an Oscar. He was acting opposite robots in a crew that had never made a space film. Between takes, he would recite German poetry and give lectures about the philosophy of madness. The cast thought he'd lost his mind. But Schell knew something they didn't. This wasn't a space adventure. It was a gothic horror film disguised as Star Wars. He played Reinhardt like Captain Ahab meets Frankenstein. And it's the only reason the movie has any gravitas at all. Number 4, Disney built the USS Cygnus ship interior as a practical set spanning over 300 feet. It was the largest spaceship set ever constructed at the time, bigger than anything in Star Wars. They filled it with stained glass windows, cathedral lighting, and Gothic architecture. It looked like Notre Dame crashed into the Death Star, and it was a nightmare to film in. The set was so massive that actors couldn't hear each other without radios. Lighting took hours, and the whole thing was built on a soundstage that wasn't reinforced properly, so the floor started buckling under the weight. Crew members nicknamed it the Cathedral of Chaos. Number 5. The robot designs were insane. Vincent and Maximilian weren't just props, they were sophisticated mechanical puppets that cost $200,000 each. Maximilian, the villainous red robot, had spinning blades for hands and required 4 operators to control. During one scene, the blades malfunctioned and kept spinning when they weren't supposed to. It nearly sliced open a stuntman's leg. Disney had to retrofit every Maximilian unit with emergency kill switches. But here's the twist. Kids loved him. Maximilian became the breakout character. Disney later admitted they should have made the whole movie about the killer robot instead of the boring astronauts. Number 6. John Barry composed one of the most epic scores ever created for a Disney film, but almost no one remembers it. Barry, fresh off his James Bond work, wrote a sweeping orchestral masterpiece that sounds like Wagner meets space opera. It's legitimately brilliant, but Disney's marketing department buried it. They didn't release a full soundtrack album until years later. Why? Because test audiences said the music was too scary and too intense for a Disney film. The company panicked and tried to downplay how dark the movie actually was. Barry was furious. He called it the best score no one heard. Number 7, Anthony Perkins, the legendary Norman Bates from Psycho, was cast as the nervous scientist Dr. Alex Durant, and he was visibly uncomfortable the entire shoot. Perkins hated science fiction. He thought the script was ridiculous. In interviews during production, he openly mocked the dialogue. When asked what the black hole symbolized, he said, "I have no idea, and I don't think the writers did either." but Disney kept him because his name brought prestige. His death scene, where Maximilian drills through him, was so violent it almost earned the film an R rating. Perkins refused to watch the final cut. Number 8, Ernest Borgnine played Harry Booth, the wisecracking journalist, and he hated the production. Borgnine was an old-school actor who thrived on location shoots and practical stunts. Instead, he spent weeks standing in front of blue screens talking to robots that weren't there. He called it the worst experience of my career. His famous line, "Maximilian? That overgrown pile of junk?" was ad-libbed out of genuine frustration. He wasn't acting. He really was angry at the prop department. Disney loved it so much they kept it in. Borgnine never mentioned the film in interviews again. Number 9. The film's ending was rewritten 7 times because no one could figure out what it meant. The original script had the crew escaping cleanly. Then Disney hired a sci-fi consultant who suggested they show what's inside the black hole. Then someone pitched making it a literal vision of hell. The final version, where Dr. Reinhardt merges with Maximilian in a fiery hellscape, was written 3 days before filming. The FX team had no time to plan it properly. They just threw red lights, smoke machines, and religious imagery together. Critics called it incoherent. The director called it interpretive. Audiences just looked confused. Number 10, if you think that was bad, wait until you hear what happened during post-production. Disney executives watched the rough cut and panicked. The film was too dark, too slow, too philosophical. So they ordered massive reshoots, but half the cast refused to come back. Ernest Borgnine was filming another movie. Anthony Perkins wanted double his salary, so Disney used body doubles and overdubbed dialogue. If you watch carefully, several key scenes have actors who are clearly not the original performers, just shot from behind or in heavy shadows. It's jarring, and it made an already disjointed film feel even more chaotic. Number 11. The Black Hole featured Disney's first-ever use of computer graphics in a live-action film. The opening shot of the Cygnus floating near the black hole was rendered using early CGI from Magi, the same company that would later work on Tron. It took 6 months to create 40 seconds of footage. The technology was so primitive that programmers had to manually code every pixel, and Disney was so proud of it they made it the centerpiece of the marketing campaign. But here's the irony. Audiences in 1979 couldn't tell the difference between the CG and the practical effects. The most expensive shot in the film went completely unnoticed. Number 12. The film's production designer, Peter Ellenshaw, was a Disney legend who'd worked on Mary Poppins and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But the black hole broke him. Ellenshaw designed the film as a gothic space opera, dark, moody, philosophical. Disney executives wanted bright colors and kid-friendly robots. They clashed constantly. At one point, Ellenshaw threatened to quit unless they let him shoot the hellscape ending his way. Disney relented, but only because they'd already spent too much money to start over. Ellenshaw later said the compromised vision haunted him for years. He retired shortly after and never worked on another sci-fi film. Number 13. Movie's robot violence was so intense that Disney had to create a new internal rating system. Before The Black Hole, Disney only made G-rated films. This was their first PG, but the MPAA initially threatened a PG-13 rating, which didn't exist yet, because Maximilian's kills were too graphic. The scene where he drills into Anthony Perkins shows no blood, but the implication is brutal. Disney argued that since there was no visible gore, it should be allowed. The MPAA reluctantly agreed. This decision set the precedent for PG-rated violence in 80s films. Disney accidentally helped create the template for darker family blockbusters. Number 14 test screenings were an absolute disaster. Kids were bored. Adults were confused. One focus group described it as 2001 meets Dracula meets Nothing We Wanted. Disney didn't know how to market it. Was it a kid's adventure? A philosophical thriller? A horror film? They settled on family sci-fi, which satisfied no one. The trailers emphasized the cute robots and downplayed the existential dread. Audiences showed up expecting Star Wars and got a slow burn meditation on obsession and madness. Many walked out. Disney's biggest gamble was collapsing in real time. Number 15. The film opened on December 21, 1979, 1 week after Star Trek, the motion picture. Both films were big-budget sci-fi spectacles. Both underperformed. But The Black Hole had it worse because it carried the Disney name. Critics savaged it. Roger Ebert called it a movie that doesn't trust its audience to understand anything. Variety said it was visually stunning and narratively dead. Box office was soft. It made $36 million against its $20 million budget. Not a disaster, but far below Disney's expectations. The studio had bet everything on reclaiming sci-fi glory. Instead, they proved they didn't understand the genre at all. Number 16, despite flopping theatrically, The Black Hole became a cult hit through home video and cable TV. HBO played it constantly in the early 80s. Kids who were too young to see it in theaters discovered it on VHS and became obsessed. The dark ending, the killer robots, the gothic atmosphere, it felt dangerous in a way other Disney films didn't. Message boards in the early internet era exploded with fan theories. What did the hell sequence mean? Was Reinhardt punished or transcended? Disney never explained. And that ambiguity became the film's greatest legacy. It was a flawed masterpiece that refused to spoon-feed answers. Number 17. Maximilian's design became iconic in robot history, influencing everything from the Terminator to Portal's turrets. His silent menace, spinning blades, and blood-red armor created a template for evil AI characters. James Cameron has cited him as inspiration for the T-800's relentless nature. Video game designers reference him constantly, and yet Disney barely merchandised him. There were a few action figures, but nothing compared to Star Wars. Maximilian should have been a merchandising goldmine. Instead, Disney misread their own creation and focused on the cute robots. It was a billion-dollar mistake. Number 18. The hell sequence was almost cut entirely. Disney's board of directors watched the final edit and several members walked out. They argued that showing a literal hell violated the company's family-friendly values. Walt Disney would never approve this. But director Gary Nelson fought back. He argued that the ending was metaphorical, a vision of obsession and madness, not actual damnation. After weeks of debate, Disney kept it in but added a disclaimer in some international markets. In certain countries, the ending was trimmed or replaced with an alternate version showing the crew escaping safely. Most audiences never saw it. Number 19. In the years after release, cast members gave conflicting accounts of what the film was supposed to mean. Maximilian Schell claimed it was about the dangers of unchecked ambition. Robert Forster said it was a straightforward rescue mission that got bloated. Yvette Mimieux called it a beautiful disaster. The screenwriters admitted they never agreed on a unified vision. One wanted hard sci-fi. The other wanted mysticism. Disney wanted Star Wars. The result was a film that tried to be everything and ended up being nothing specific. And yet that confusion is exactly why it endures. It's a Rorschach test in space. Number 20, John Barry's score was nominated for multiple awards, but lost to Star Trek, the motion picture. Insult to injury. Barry was bitter about it for years. He believed The Black Hole was his best work, and the Academy ignored it because the film flopped. In later interviews, he called it the score that deserved better. Fans agree. If you listen to the soundtrack isolated from the film, it's a masterpiece. Sweeping, operatic, genuinely moving. It's proof that sometimes the best part of a flawed film is the piece that gets overlooked. Number 21. Disney tried to make a sequel in the mid-80s called Beyond. The Black Hole. The script followed a new crew, investigating what happened to the Cygnus. It would have been darker, R-rated, and more horror-focused. But after The Black Hole's disappointing performance, the studio killed the project. A few concept sketches surfaced online in the 2000s, showing nightmarish alien designs and body horror elements. Fans went insane. Disney has never acknowledged the sequel existed. But those who worked on it say it would have been a masterpiece. Proof that Disney almost made their Alien before giving up and retreating to safe territory. Number 22. In 2009, director Joseph Kosinski, Tron, Legacy, Oblivion, pitched a Black Hole remake to Disney. His vision was stunning, a hard sci-fi reimagining with modern effects and a coherent script. Disney was interested, Then they bought Lucasfilm and got Star Wars. The remake was shelved indefinitely. Kosinski later said it was the one that got away. And that's the black hole's ultimate fate. A film too weird to succeed, too ambitious to forget, forever stuck in development hell. It's a monument to what happens when a studio doesn't understand its own story. And yet, decades later, we're still talking about it. The Black Hole was Disney's beautiful disaster, a film that tried to chase Star Wars but ended up creating something stranger, darker and more unforgettable. It failed at the box office. It confused audiences, but it refused to be forgotten. And maybe that's the real legacy. Sometimes the movies that don't make sense are the ones that matter most. Drop a comment and tell us what legendary story we should explore next. And if you survive this deep dive, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started.